The American Romantic period, which lasted from about 1830 to 1870, was a time of rapid expansion and growth in the United States, which fueled intuition, imagination, and individualism in literature. Now, when you think about stories that are labeled romantic, you probably think of a romance novel, where some half-dressed woman has some Fabio-esque guy hanging all over her. That is not what we're talking about in the American Romantic period. Now, don't get me wrong. Like those stories, romantic literature is both adventuresome and improbable, but it's a lot more than just a randy love story. Now, in 1830, just 50 years after the Revolutionary War, America was still really young, but its citizens were anxious to create their own identity that was uniquely American and not so reliant on European values. Therefore, the American Romantic movement challenged the very rational thinking that we saw in the Age of Reason during the Revolutionary War. So this period produced fewer instructional texts and more stories, novels, and poetry. Within these stories, novels, and poems, there are 5 characteristics that we can use to identify American Romantic literature. These are imagination, individuality, nature as a source of spirituality, looking to the past for wisdom, and seeing the common man as a hero. The first of these characteristics is imagination. This falls in line with the Industrial Revolution, which was a great time of progress. And in many cases when there is progress, there is also great optimism. People start to imagine what could happen next, and progress continues. On the flip side of that, with that much progress, a lot of people began migrating to big cities that were becoming overpopulated. The cities became dirty and disease-ridden. So it's no surprise that many people wanted to escape that. Therefore, the American Romantic writers embraced that notion through escapism. This is where the mind allows you to escape harsh conditions by taking you to a place that is purely beautiful. Characters in romantic literature are often journeying away from the city and into the countryside, to a place that's not totally realistic, to a place that has improbable and even supernatural qualities. The authors develop these places with imagery to make the reader experience the locale as if it was real. Now, Washington Irving, who's known as the father of American literature, wrote a story called Rip Van Winkle, which is about a man who wanders out into the woods to escape some chores his wife is asking him to do. After falling asleep for 20 years in the woods, he not only escapes his chores, but his wife as well, because she's dead. This fanciful escape is typical during this time, but it's something we still see in movies today. Think about the movie Avatar. Jake Sully is able to escape by assuming a new identity in a beautiful new world. Even the audience, as they watch, is able to escape reality as they experience the fantastical world of Pandora. So we see escapism continues today. The second characteristic used to identify American Romanticism is individuality. As people are moving into the frontier, they are establishing new areas in ways that best suit their needs. Not only are people moving across the country, but into the country. Immigration begins, creating what we now call the melting pot in America. As a result, you see not only people creating an identity for themselves, but the country creating its own identity as people with different social pasts come together to create something new. Americans also wanted to distance themselves from Europe and become intellectually independent. This shows up in literature with characters who live on the outskirts of society. Kind of like that old school cowboy, they aren't going to follow the norms that have come over from Europe. They're going to follow their intuition, their feeling, and they're going to embrace this newly found freedom and become individuals. Third, we have nature as a source of spirituality. Remember, initially the Puritans were coming to the colonies to escape religious persecution in England. Those Puritans' ideas did not disappear when the country was established. During this time, the Romantics want to embrace that spiritual root that was planted by the Puritans. To do that, they're taking what was established in that spiritual realm, but then taking it into nature. Now, where the Puritans saw nature as savage with the devil hiding behind every tree, the Romantics really are finding God in nature. They believed that they could achieve high levels of insight and information about the world around them just by going to nature. William Cullen Bryant was a poet during this time, and he wrote a poem called Thanatopsis. It's a prime example of looking into nature for spiritual insight. He explores death through the life cycles that we see in nature. He finds both comfort for the living and for the dying. So, in his point of view, death is just a chance to go back to nature. The fourth characteristic is the idea that wisdom can be gained from the past. Writers like Washington Irving used old legends to create new stories. And whereas the novelists and short story writers tried to distance themselves from European tradition in writing, the poets stick to that tradition. Their form is the same. Their techniques are the same. However, they are truly unique in their content in that they are looking at the pure nature America has to offer and are using that for their inspiration. This encourages a group called the Fireside Poets, who are known because people sat by the fire and read their poems in the evenings, kind of like how we sit and watch our favorite TV shows at night. It was a form of entertainment, and a popular form at that time. Now, there are 4 fireside poets that you should know. All of them have really long names. We have Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, John Greenleaf Whittier. How about that for a fantastic name? Oliver Wendell Holmes, and James Russell Lowell. These 4 guys were well known in their time, and even though their style was not unique, the Fireside Romantic poets are still recognized as some of America's greatest poets ever. As our final characteristic, we have the common man as our hero. Prior to this time, the European hero had been established as sophisticated and educated. Ben Franklin fits into this mold. He was educated. He was an inventor. He helped establish the country. This is a man who is looked up to as a hero. The American Romantics turned away from that. James Fenimore Cooper is known for writing the first American novel starring the character Natty Bumppo. That name does not sound very heroic, does it? But Bumppo becomes the first American hero. He's young, he's innocent, and awkward with the ladies. But he has a solid moral code even if he doesn't always follow society's rules. He has intuition about people. He loves nature, and he's questing for a higher truth. He's a character like Luke Skywalker. One day he's out shooting womp rats, and the next he's flying an X-Wing. Indiana Jones is also a good example of the American hero. He doesn't change as he tackles his adventures, but we know that his heart is always in the right place. In summary, you can identify American Romantic literature by the 5 characteristics that make it unique. Number 1, imagination and escapism. Characters taking a journey from the dirty city into the supernatural countryside. Number 2, individuality. Individuals embracing freedom by following intuition and going exploring. Number 3, finding spirituality in nature. Reflections on nature and how it can bring people closer to God. Number 4, looking to the past for wisdom. Settings that reflect times past and plots that show how legends fit in today. And number 5, finding a hero in the common man. Characters who are flawed, but whose innocence and strong morals give them good hearts. And that summarizes American literature during the Romantic period.
Did you know that this video is a part of a free course that leads to real college credit that is accepted by over 2,900 colleges and universities in the U.S.? YouTube has only a small percentage of the videos in this course. Visit educationportal.com for full access to the remaining videos and additional free study materials. We have dozens of free courses, and each course is made up of fun and engaging video micro lessons like the one you just watched. Each lesson comes complete with a full written transcript and quiz to test your comprehension. Join the revolution in free education. Visit Education Portal now to take free courses and earn real college credit.